Okay, so I thought I would throw out a video just because it's kind of a unique opportunity, right? Like the markets have tanked over the last couple days, so I thought it would be an interesting time just to say, how do I react to that? What happened to my plan? What could happen to your plan? What do you do? Like, what would I do if things did get bad? I have another video that I'll be putting together about like how I introduce margin into my plan to deal with, if things go wrong. But I thought it would be good today just to kind of show you what's been happening to my plan in light of what's happening in the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, which is a little bit surprising, right? So as you can see by looking at my screen right now, that I'm at 81%. I was running higher than that. Let's take a look here. So I had actually on April 3rd, in anticipation of this tariff and liberation day, I looked at that day because remember it gets the new stock numbers at night, right? Capital. So I looked at my overall plan stat and it was 91. And then I did it again on April 4th, the next day, and it was 87. And then I did it yesterday. Yeah, the 5th. I did it yesterday and it was 80. so so it was pretty not shocking, wrong word, because I look at it pretty frequently. So I knew it was going down. Everyone knows it's going down. But the only thing that didn't make sense to me is, well, here we'll get into that in a second. So just to kind of show you like what was going on with my 401k, this is from a year. You can see this massive drop right here at the end. But I also looked at it for a year. So about a year ago today, or a year ago yesterday, I was sitting at 1,342,000. And you can see all throughout that, I was like making money, things are cranking up. I am, I am actually below, or no, I'm sorry. This is as of today. Um, Wait, why did they both say April 4th, 2024? That's interesting. Um, April 4th, 2025. Because I'm looking at the first year. What a moron. Okay, so what this number at the top is when I was hovering over it. So what this is I'm currently at 1,342,825, and that's my 1 year. But if you go back 1 year, this is the hover over number where if you hover over it, it'll show you the top of the number. I was at 1,320,000. So basically, all year I made $22,000, which like I said, I'm not. I mean, it's sad, it's depressing a little bit, but it's not shocking by any stretch because you got to take the good with the bad. And more importantly, we're not going to get into politics. I actually think these are all good things. Getting back, reducing waste, getting back to producing things in America. Just that whole mentality of switching, trying to take back our manufacturing base. I think is a good thing. But who knows? Time will tell. So if you look now, I'm at 81. The only thing that kind of threw me off about this, which I still don't have a real answer for it, is if you look. So I put this into Google. I said, how much has the S&P dropped in the last 2 days? And it said in the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday, the S&P has experienced significant drop, falling approximately 10%. Okay, let's look at, and remember, so I have a lot. I have my whole portfolio, but I probably have like 50% in these kind of things like NASDAQ, S&P 500, and then 50% in like bonds and cash and money market kind of stuff. So what was it? So the S&P 500 drops 10%. The NASDAQ drops 10%. So you would think, which I don't have a good answer for this, but it's just interesting, that if 50% of my plan is in this kind of stuff and it dropped 10%, you would, I don't know, my logical deduction is my plan would drop by half that much. My success, my odds of never getting down to my invested assets being zero. But it didn't. It's interesting that it dropped 10% along with the market. Now, the only thing I can think of with that is it really a real 10%? So you'll see that the three things that I'm really living off of a lot or seem to be looking at to kind of look at what's going on in my plan is obviously I look at cash flows because I like to see what does Right Capital's project my cash flows to be, my account balances, things like that. But I've also been spending a lot of time looking at asset simulation because that gives me a timeline as to when I get my failures. So I think what happened is I used to always fail around 77. Now I have more that are failing at 76. So I wish I had a real good explanation for that. Um, but it looks like I mean, let's talk about probability again. So this means out of out of 1,000 simulated Monte Carlos, 190 of them are failing, right? Whereas before, failing being defined as my assets, not including my house, not including Social Security or any annuities, just my assets in the stock market are gone. So and that's what you see here, right? You see if that in some of these the median, which is this blue line, has me pretty good, 700, 679,000. But I have more occurrences. Now I have more occurrences, and they're mainly at 76 because I think what this looked at before, unfortunately, I didn't pull this up on April 3rd, is I have a feeling that this space here above 77 used to be narrower, meaning that I had less failures and they were all around 77. Now that now that the market's gone down 10%, what that means is I must have had some that were like really low balances. And this must have been enough to push them, because a non-failure in Right Capital is I have $1. I have $1 in an account. So I could have had some accounts that just didn't have a lot. And then all of a sudden those accounts blasted early, at 76. So that's the only thing I can think of that says, hey, why, even though half my assets, not even half my market, well, half my liquid assets, um, half of all my liquid assets, since they're in the stock market, went down by 10%. So why did I go down 10%? And so I think the only answer for that is I just think I must have had a lot that were teetering, and that was just enough to push them in and make them fail at 76. Okay, so you can experience that too. So now what do you do? So obviously, what I do for now is stay the course. Um, I'm not going to react. I'm not going to react with like these knee jerk reactions of, oh my gosh, we got to do whatever. And this is all part of watching your plan, right? Looking at your plan monthly or whatever you feel comfortable with and deciding, do I need to change the trajectory of my plan? I'm just like, this is me thinking off the cuff right now. It would probably take it would probably take an I would probably have to see this like this for a year and even lower. Like if a year from now I was still at 80, because I'm okay with 85. 85 means that, hey, there may be a really bad scenario where I need to adjust and I would know about that. So I'm really comfortable with 85. So that means I'm pretty comfortable with 81 too. That's not that far off. So I probably wouldn't do much of anything. And not only that, if you don't do something and things are going down, down, down every year, this 81 is going to start going down, down, down too. So I'm not going to do anything. And also, I'm smart, right? Right Capital is not smart. Well, am I really smart? It's really whether or not the government's smart at this point. But I know there's a lot going on. Right Capital doesn't know that. So I know there's a lot going on. I know that it's not like some major event has occurred that will like knock our country aloof for 20 years and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, let's face it, if things are bad, yes, there's a trust factor with other countries now, but we could just lower the tariffs. I mean, if tariffs are truly causing us problem and we don't get out of this in a year, they could just say, well, we're gonna lower our tariffs. That is not the same as COVID. Like COVID was a genuine fear of, are we going to get out of this? Will people leave their houses? Are we looking at this lifestyle for 20 years? It's just different. What I see happening now, which is a direct correlation, which is the tariffs primarily, I think, in with regards to the stock market, it's something that can be changed, something we can bounce back. Personally, I think we can bounce back even better. I think it's going to take some time, but I think, well, I have a whole thought. We're not going to get into that. I try and stay away from too much of that stuff. So let's just play out for one. I would wait. I wouldn't do anything for probably at least 2 years, and I'd want to see this thing go down. Now, what if I did see it going down? What kind of things would I do? Probably I would start looking at what are some things that I happen to know. Everyone should know their retirement, their budget, retirement slash budget well enough to kind of know in the back of your head where you could go. So I probably know my first place going somewhere, and you can kind of look at the budget. Actually, that's even a better way to look at it. Is I would probably go to my budget, which you should be keeping. Like I said, I believe in tracking your actuals versus your budget. And when you connect, I don't know if we've done it yet at this point, but I have a video on that. But what you could do is you could go to your budget. Like I said, I'm going to have a whole video on this. I think next week I'm going to release these. So this is kind of coming out before then because I thought it was just interesting. Is I would probably go to this budget tab. Again, as long as you're tracking, you've connected right capital to your spending accounts, and you're looking at those, you're monitoring those transactions to make sure they get bucketed into the right budget category that correlates to your retirement category. But I would probably go here and say, you know what, give me the last, I don't know if I have 12 months of data yet, because I think I started connecting mine uh, like maybe 6 months ago. I would probably look at this and say, hey, where do I have some leeway that maybe I have to play with? Um, so if you look at some of this, like you'll look like this miscellaneous expenses. I've got some leeway there. Maybe I could take out a couple $100 a month. According to this, I have $700, which is probably about right. I could also look at, I have another, I'm going to have a whole video on margin, but I happen to know, oh, those categories aren't even in, oh yeah, they must be in here. My categories to take care of my house. So I have, oh, here it is, house, lumpy. Oh, I know, I put them together. So I also would probably look at this house lumpy emergency thing and combine it with the one spreadsheet I do use, which we'll talk about. I know I have a video on this that keeps track of how much money I carry over from the prior year into these categories. I know, like right now, I know that I've got 2 years fully funded of this lumpy emergency spending. So I would probably reduce this. And actually, one of the ways we can see if this would work. So this is how you go and say, hey, and you could go past last 6 months if you didn't do this raw. You could go in here and say, listen, based on my lifestyle, what are some areas I should look at for that I could possibly cut to get my probability higher. And so then what you can do pretty easily, right? And we've done this before, is you can go to retirement, and then from retirement you can go to your probability section, and you can go down here to action items. So like I said, I would go down here and I would say, okay, you know what, I've seen it's, what they should give you the budget column here so you can look in here. Um, and I would probably say, listen, I think I can trim a couple hundred a month off here. And then I happen to know that where are you? My house stuff, my house lumpy spending, and my house emergency repairs. Maybe I could trim 100 off there and another 100 off there. And then let's just take a look. And let's take a look and see what happens. So I go from an 81 to a 90. So you can see it doesn't take a lot of changes to kind of work with this. Like I said, I wouldn't change anything for like a year, but I'm just saying if I was in a situation, and if it was 81, I wouldn't change anything. But if I was in a situation where it started falling down, where for a year I had some pretty bad numbers there, like bad numbers, like not 85, not 80, maybe not even 75. I'm pretty comfortable with that too. But if I started dropping below 75, I would probably be a bit nervous. And so I would probably look to start trimming my budget. Because remember, you could trim now, and then if something in conditions of the world change and things start going good, you can always, bump those categories back up. So that brings us to why, even in this market instability, um, yeah, I'm gonna bring this back to where it was. Even in all this market instability, it's so important to understand your retirement plan because you may see this market drop, and let's face it, that's pretty terrifying if you just look at it visually. Like this is a whole year of the market, and bang, it's just if you don't know your numbers, you could look at that and go, oh my gosh, I'm in big trouble. Like that's why it's so important to know your numbers, have some software that will kind of give you good future, that actually helps you plan in the future. And that's why that's why I live in Right Capital for the most part. So, again, not a financial advisor. These are just all my opinions, but thanks for taking the time to listen. Get Right Capital. The best thing you can do is take control of your retirement. It's super important. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.